I think you're amazing.
You are too, Henry.
Thank you so much. Well, Perry, you are awesome.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, and I appreciate you, what you're doing too, buddy.
Well, thank you. Because if you allow the world to define you, if you allow friends to define you, if you allow your spouse to define you, or anybody to define you outside of how God sees you, that does open the door to rejection. God bless you, and I hope y'all have an amazing day.
Thank you, Brother Henry.
Thank you.
God bless you too. Thank you for having us.
Hello, everybody. Brother Henry Harris, my dear friend, asked me to give a little talk, and he said I could choose whatever topic I wanted. And I chose how to pushing past religion to get to Jesus. And this is a topic that is kind of near and dear to me, and I didn't know how to approach it in this kind of venue, but what I wanted to do is to say, I'm just going to share my experience. I was going to go through and give a whole bunch of scripture and all this, but I decided that that was probably not the best thing to do, that the best thing to do to approach this was just share my experience. I was raised in a rather conservative group, and we went to my parents both had family that had churches, and we went to those churches, and they were little country churches. And I don't recall a lot of things there being a problem. They just taught from the Bible, and we sang. Everybody had a chance to sing if they wanted to. We gave testimonies. It was fun growing up in church because I learned that I had a lot of liberty in God that way. And then as we got to be teenagers, my mom thought she was doing the best thing, and she moved us into larger churches within our area that were of kind of we're a branch off Pentecostal, so it was one of those denominations that was kind of name brand. We went to a couple of them, and so through that, I learned that there was such a thing as church abuse. I didn't know that there was a term for that at the time called spiritual abuse, but it's very much alive, and it's very much a well even in today's society. I went to a church where I was told that I could not take a vacation, that I had to be there because I was the organist for that church, and I had to be there every time the doors was open. So during those 5 years that I attended that church, I did not take a vacation. I was also told, because they didn't think I was paying my full tithes, to give my full check, and I didn't get very much money. I worked for the state at the time, and I got $300 every 2 weeks. So $300 every 2 weeks, $600 a month. And even back then, it wasn't much money. What he wanted me to do was to bring my check to him, sign it over to him. They would pay my tithes first, pay my bills, and then give me what was left. And that was when I said, no, I'm not going to do that. So then they wanted me to get up before the church and say that I was rebellious. And then I had another incident where I had a friend not long ago. He told me, he said, if you have to lie to anybody or kind of skirt around the truth, then you probably don't need to be talking to those people or hanging out with them. And I kind of thought, well, hey, that's true. Because during this time, there was a situation that arose, and I did not tell, I told them partial truth, but not full truth. And so when they found out that, then they said I needed to get up before the church and tell them that I was prideful and a liar. And they had already had a gentleman do that. I had seen that happen, and it served no purpose other than for everybody to think, wow, if he lies, wonder what all he's lied to us about. And we didn't need to know that. And so from those experiences, as I was going back, I thought, wow, that's really something to have went through. And a lot of people will say, well, why, how do people get into these churches and stay in these churches? They must not be right in the head. Well, the whole problem is that they play on vulnerable people. They play on people who feel left out in society. They play on people who feel left out in the church world. And so all of a sudden they take you in, they love on you, and they give you all this stuff. And you feel like, hey, I'm a part. And I remember in one church, they had these people that did kind of have a little bit of a mental issue, and they would use them to clean the kitchen and the bathrooms. And these people thought they were doing great things. There's nothing wrong with cleaning the kitchen and the bathrooms, but they had built that job up to such a degree that they really thought they were cleaning Jesus's kitchen and bathroom. I mean, that's how they felt about it. And so we don't need to do that. And that's really spiritual abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. They will kind of use their gauge to say whether you're spiritual enough to be on their platform. If you're not spiritual enough to be on their platform, you don't get on the platform. It's just that way. And nobody really thinks anything about it other than they do talk about you, because like I said, I didn't participate in some of the talk and some I did, because you know, you just felt like that you were a part of it. And then there would be other people that would get by with everything. They would get set down off the platform, but they were only down like one service, and then they'd be right back up, while other people had to stay off for 6 months to a year, sometimes 2 years. And so it's these things that I don't feel have any room in serving God. We just don't. I feel like, and then they'll tell you that you have to go to this building, you have to be there every Sunday, and they pick the time. And maybe that's not a good time for you, because some people have their Sunday service at 10 a.m. I happen to work night shift. I do a 12-hour night shift on Saturday nights, every Saturday. And so I'm getting older, and so I have to have a nap when I get off work. And so for me to be there at 10 o'clock is impossible. So a lot of them do not have night services. So is that my fault? But then they'll say, well, you didn't make time for Jesus. You should have made time for Jesus. And so there's so many things that I'm now kind of opening up and seeing, hey, that's not right. And if I see that it's not right, and if I see it as hurtful, then other people are seeing this too. I'm on Facebook, and I have friends from a variety of different organizations, denominations, belief systems. Some don't go to church at all. Some are atheists. And so as they watch people interact with me on there, because I do have some people that will say, there's this one guy that got off into calling him Yahweh, and that you have to have church on Saturday and all of this stuff. And so he would then put pictures up like of a Playboy bunny, just a bunny like the Playboy, you recognize it as the Playboy bunny. And then he would say something about, this is what you all did when you had church on Easter Sunday and called it Easter. And then he said, then he posted something else, and it was supposed to be, one time I told him, I said, this is very offensive. Very, very, very offensive. It had a woman on it was a shadow. Somebody had drawn it, and it was a woman on a pole. And he said, this is what you people are doing when you're not calling him Yahweh, and you're a whore. And so that snapped my brain. And I sent him a message and told him I was very upset about that. That I felt like that was, my eyes didn't need to see that personally. I didn't want to look at it. And he said, oh, poor thing. That was how he interacted. And he's supposed to be a minister, and he's supposed to have all this new divine revelation. So he started that stuff, and I just got rid of him. Because I thought, you know what, every time I see his post, they ignite anger inside me, and I don't want that. If he wants to believe that and live that for himself, that's fine. We are all on a journey, and none of us have the full truth. None of us do. I don't care how much you say you do, you don't, because we're still learning, we're still growing. And I learned that there are people, I learned this several years ago when my son and I were in Florida, and there was a lady that I worked with, and she said, I think you might like this church. She said, they believe kind of like you do. And she said, but I'm not like you all. She said, I just enjoy kind of the surface serving God. I just like to go to the service. I like to go back home. I like to do my thing. And so then it was then that the light come on, and I thought, well, everybody is at a different level, and everybody does want a different walk with God. Who am I to say that she was wrong? Who am I to say, well, then you're just wrong if you don't want to go any deeper than that? And some of us, some are like me. I love to learn. I love to learn the Bible. And I realized that I don't have the ability to sit with Jesus at a table and talk with him. And so I have to pray, and then I have to work through that and make sure that that's not my own mentality telling me things and showing me things. And so then when I try it and I prove it, then I'm like, oh, we got something evidence-based here. I've seen a lot of things with my own eyes that I will never doubt. I know that God heals. I've seen many miracles. My mom has been healed many times. She had Crohn's disease, and at one point they couldn't even find traces of the disease. And then she had kind of a activation of it a few years later. It wasn't real bad, like she typically had to go to the hospital and stuff. So when they did another you know, kind of scans and stuff on her, they found that she did have traces of it, but God still healed her. She never had to be in the hospital like she used to. And I have had interactions with church people, like I play piano and I sing. I love to play music, and I put it on Facebook. And so one person sent me a note. It was on my phone, so it obviously had to be somebody I knew. And but it was from one of those burner numbers. And it said that I looked psychotic when I played the piano, and that I had a terrible problem with lust. And they were just telling me all this stuff. And so I thought, that is not at all like me. And it upset all of my family and all of my friends. Because of course I was going to share that. I needed somebody to talk that out with. And so they started telling me I was a terrible mother. I needed to bring my son back home to my mother where she could deprogram him. And so all of that stuff was just, and all of this came from church people. Now, when I say I doubt very seriously if I will ever darken the door of another church building unless it's for some kind of special occasion. I will never put myself back under this this tightness where I don't have the ability to think for myself, and I don't have the ability that I can live morally without somebody. And I always question, when they're always up there, they're always saying, you need to submit to a pastor, submit to a pastor, submit to a pastor. What does submit mean to them? What do they expect? Do they expect me to just do everything that person tells me to do? He may have some knowledge and some spiritual knowledge, and he may or may not know how to deal with people. He may or may not have the right goals in mind. And I think that we should have that ability, if we choose to go to a building, that we have that ability to ask them, what are your goals? They don't care to see how you're spending your money and to decide if you're not paying enough tithes. But we can never question them. We see them in a new suit or a new dress, and they live in a fabulous home while we live in a modest home and sometimes have trouble paying our bills. If they have trouble paying bills, they just get up and say, we have a need and we need everybody to give an offering. And then later on, you find out it was for their bills, or their son needed a new wheelchair, or whatever, you know. But we don't have that ability. So I think a lot of things have been misused and abused. And I'm to the point now that I should say it makes me angry, but angry is not really the word. It makes me concerned that people are being used and abused like this, and it goes from generation to generation, just over and over. And if you'll notice, most of the churches are usually pastored by family. Like the grandpa will have it, it'll go to the son or the daughter's husband. It just keeps going on down the family line. So it's like a kingdom. And so I would like to kind of get to the point that, and to get the word out, because anybody can get subjected to this belief system. Anybody can do it, but you don't have to. You have the right to have your own mind. You have the right to follow God. You have the right to serve God in all that you know. And that's simply all that we're asked to do. We're not asked to go out here and beat up people and get them to believe exactly like we do, so that you'll get stars in your crown in heaven. When I was little, they used to tell me that in Sunday school all the time. So when I got to be a teenager, they said that the way to get those stars in your crown was to get people to come to church and get them baptized and get them, you know, to receive the Holy Ghost and all of this. But I think I began to rethink that. And I think that if we encourage people in God, now there is a morality code that we have as Christians. It's a morality code. We don't do certain things simply because it's the right thing not to do it. I remember talking to a counselor friend, and she told me, she said one time, she said, Linda, sometimes we just do things because it's the right thing not to do. She said, it may be hot. I may want to take off all my clothes and run around the city. But she said, the popo's going to get after me. And I always thought that was funny, but I never forgot that lesson. The police would be after her for indecent exposure. It was something she wanted to do, and she did it, but you know, there was a consequence. So there are things that we do just because it's the right thing not to do them, or we do it because it's the right thing to do. But all of these pressures that are put on us by the religious world, that is not touching Jesus. It's not getting us to touch Jesus. Jesus doesn't really care if I pay tithes or don't. He doesn't need my money. And I remember in the scripture, where he's talking to his disciples and he tells them to go get a donkey. And then when they get the donkey, he says, if anybody asks what's going on, you just say the master has need of it. Now, I don't recommend that we all go out, get whatever we want and just say the master has need of it. But I mean, what I'm saying is, they have you thinking that you have to give everything. And sometimes we sacrifice time. And nowadays, it's a great sacrifice of time to attend a building because we're very pressed for time in this society, in this era. This is a whole different era. I heard a guy call it a strange era, and he's exactly right. It is a very strange era. Well, I don't want to keep on rattling, but I think I hit all the main points that I had to share. Thank you, Brother Henry, for this opportunity to share my thoughts. I appreciate you, love you in the Lord, and you guys take care.
Well, Perry, you are awesome.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, and I appreciate you what you're doing too, buddy.
Well, thank you. Because if you allow the world to define you, if you allow friends to define you, if you allow your spouse to define you, or anybody to define you outside of how God sees you, that does open the door to rejection.
God bless you. I hope y'all have an amazing day.
Thank you, Brother Henry.
Thank you.
God bless you too. Thank you for having me.